In choosing a typeface for the body copy, I like to set a paragraph of type using 3 different typefaces. And so I've set the first paragraph is in Baskerville, the second paragraph is in Athleas, and the third is in Lucida Sans. And right off the bat, you can kind of see differences in each of the typefaces. The third example down here just feels larger, and that's because it is. It's taller than the other 2 typefaces. It has a larger X height. And so if I was going to use this in a print layout, I would probably set it at 9 point. Right now it's at 10.5. And it's going to be too large. When I print it out and look at it, it's going to be too big. I'm not going to use that. I might use it as an element, but it's not going to be my body copy. So when you're choosing a typeface for your body copy, you really want a clean typeface, one that has good X height, one that it's a proportionate typeface, and it's easy to read and really clear legibility. So that leaves us to the top 2, and I like both of these a whole lot. I think they're both really lovely typefaces. Baskerville is a classic typeface, and it was designed by John Baskerville in the 1750s. So this typeface has been around for a long time, and it's just one of those classics. When it came around, it was in response to the old typefaces, and so this is actually considered a transitional typeface. The second typeface here, the Athleas, is a more contemporary typeface. It was designed by a design team in 2008, and they have a very cool website that I'm just going to pop up here. Yeah, their URL is type-together.com, and this is just, if you ever thought that black and white was boring, then when you look at this layout, it should tell you otherwise. So look at this lovely typeface. It's sans serif, but it's fat and chunky. It's got really small counter spaces. Look at those tiny little counter spaces. It's got really fat strokes. So it needs to be used for a headline. You're not going to set body copy in something like that, right? But in any event, you can visit their website and see some of their custom fonts. And they have a blog, and they've got it going on. Oh, isn't that a nice, look at that, fresh geometric sans. Isn't that a lovely typeface? Very, very nice. All right, back to the 2 contenders. Either of these would work really good. In fact, I think the second one here, I think it just feels a little more contemporary than the first one. I'm going to use Baskerville because it's a classic, and I want, a lot of the typefaces we don't really they have a name, but we just kind of look at them and we use them. But you should Google, every time you use a typeface, you should Google it and try to find out something about it, because you'll learn what periods they came from. You'll learn a lot about them, and that can help you with, really tightening your focus in terms of functionality and styles of typefaces. I have made a little comparative, pull out my guides that I have set up. And, this is just I'm going to go over X height counters and talk a little bit about serif or terminal style. So this is your X height, and I'm sure if you did your readings, you've got that figured out what that is. And you can see that Lucida Sans is very typeface. So it's a little bit taller than the other 2 in this V instance. And there's your X height. So that tells us that it's really good for screen reading. We need that little bit extra X height for good legibility. Another thing is the counter spaces. And if you look at the counter spaces in each of these, this is the enclosed area. So any letters that have an enclosed area, like P, in this case it's this part of the A. And 2 things, the proportion of the white space in relation to the stroke around it, right? And you'll see that Athleas has a little bit more contrast, and I think that's why it feels a little fresher. And Baskerville, you can see that there's quite a bit of white space in relation to the stroke, and I think that's what gives it on the screen. It has a lighter weight than the other 2 typefaces. Okay, you can also look at sans serif typefaces they typically don't have too much variation in the stroke width. So if I look at the stroke here on the A and then here, there's a slight bit of variation in terms of the width. It's a little narrower here, a little fatter there, but not too much. And in some sans serif typefaces, there's even less contrast than what is here. But this has a slight bit of contrast. Over at the other end of the spectrum here, the Baskerville, you'll see that the stroke width is quite, there is more contrast. This is narrower, right? And this is wider. In the letter V, look how thin this stroke is in relation to that stroke. So there's more contrast in the stroke weight. Lucida Sans is, because it's a sans serif typeface, it just has what we call terminals, so the stroke kind of just ends. But it's kind of elegant. Let me get rid of this box. And you can see that the letter A tapers a little bit. And so each terminal ends in certain letter forms. Then you'll see some variation. And there were some examples in your handout. So that's kind of all I want to say about that. So the next step is going in and setting your columns of type.